Hello everyone, it's been a while. I'm back with an update on GPSketch. It took a while to come out because it actually became much bigger than what I thought it would be at the beginning. I kept on adding features and tools and everything as I was going, and because I was busy with work I could never take the time to actually make a release note and record a video and everything. But here you go. GPSketch 1.5 comes with a lot of updates. Let's just go over a quick summary of all of this and then we'll dive into each point. One big feature that took a while is the import of the brushes from your favorite painting softwares like Photoshop, Procreate, Clip Studio Paint and Krita. I tried to make the importer as smart as I could for now. It can always be improved, but I also tried to make the customization of brushes easier and more accessible, so once you have the basics you can just customize them, save them, and here you go. There's only a limitation with Procreate 5.4, the new release. They changed completely the way brushes are saved. Now the brush stamp is not saved in the bundle that you export, so I don't have access to it. I don't know how importing will work. All the brushes work fine, but the newer ones, they don't even have the stamp. So that's the biggest feature that's new, at least the one that took me the longest to develop. Another very exciting one, it's thanks to a friend that allowed me to borrow his idea. It's a cursor placement tool, and I will show you how it works. It's very useful, especially waiting for VR to come out for Grease Pencil. It gives you a bit more degrees of freedom on the placement orientation of your work planes. The sidebar panel got big improvements with additions of randomization, HSV sliders, customizable brushes, buttons and shortcuts. The preferences also look much nicer and there's much more options. And there's a new feature in the Grease Pencil modifier itself, like a big one. It's the new mapping of the stamps, which allows to have the brush stamps always aligned to the camera. This is really cool because it helps a lot the 2D feeling and have a clean stamps. It's really nice, I'll show you later. And there is also a lot of improvements and bug fixes on the GPSketch modifier itself. I reintroduced the back-facing in shading. For those who knew GPSketch from the beginning, I had to remove it, now it's back. And I improved and fixed a lot the capture color. So just a quick recap of what GPSketch is for those who are not familiar with it. It's a bridge between Grease Pencil objects and mesh object. So in general, when you draw with Grease Pencil, it's making strokes and curves that have a different shading system than the mesh materials, and it's completely separate, so you don't have any link to it, and also you don't have actual geometry. So if you want to export for some reason or have proper interaction with light, it is limited. So GPSketch is handling that conversion for you. It comes with a lot of features, so here you can see I'm in the GPSketching workspace that aims to mimic a bit Photoshop, for example, or any other painting programs. I will just go over how the modifier system works quickly, and then we'll dive more into the panel and everything more in detail. So I imported the GPSketch object that comes in the asset library. So if I go in my assembly, which is just a shortcut to have access to the asset browser. Here you can see, so there are the brushes, the paint brushes, so these are the Grease Pencil brushes, the modifiers, which is this one, the main one, and then those are other tools that you can use. Some modifiers which are used by these objects, except this one, that's capture color that I will show later also, and those are the shaders that are used by. So if I erase this stroke and choose just a random brush, choose a color, so you can start just painting, so that sounds basic. But if you look here, we actually have planes, a bunch of planes. If I remove the color blend, you can see the separation between all of them. And you can transform these planes into a round or cube brushes, and there's cap options, so when you activate the cap, it creates a cap on each of them. Same for the round, and there is also a rounded corner cap. This one I recommend to use with the line mode. The line mode is different from the points because it doesn't create an instance or an object per point in your curve, but it creates, in this case, a tube. Here is just a long plane, is a long cube. And in that case, the rounded corner works really well and really gives a nice effect. So under the hood, just so you understand how the system works, GPSketch is sort of setting up your grease pencil curves, recording a lot of attributes. This GPSketch material is automatically handled by the add-on. If there is, for some reason, a disconnection between your drawing, your materials, and actual drawing, sometimes it's kind of disconnects and you don't see the updates, you can just click here, it will refresh this modifier, and it should be back to normal. So you can just draw. I put back into plane for now because that's what looks nice with this type of brushes. You have color blend. Without it, each stroke doesn't blend with the neighbor, but when you activate it, it will, and then you can increase the blend to make it more or less soft. Activating the show curve strokes can show you what the actual stroke is. So when you have a random placement with this, you can see that what the stroke is doing that. But otherwise you will have a straight stroke. It can be helpful if you are in sculpt mode to see your stroke, the stroke where it actually is, if you want to do any operation. But you can deactivate it and you have a clean look of what you're doing. If you feel like when you're drawing there's too many points, it's too dense, you can increase the space multiplier, and this will reduce the amount of points. You can rotate your shapes. So this is the base rotation, and then they will always use this rotation. It's handy in certain cases. You have access to how the plane will be scaled. And it's not only the plane, of course, it's also the cube and the round shape. I'm still in rounded corner, so you can see how it gets lower. You also have access to custom objects. So, for example, if I create a Suzanne, and then I use the custom object and I pick Suzanne, now we are gonna start to paint with a bunch of Suzannes. And the stamp texture is gonna be applied on the UVs of the object. For instances like this custom object, I recommend using removing the color blend because it can get heavy really fast. And like this, it kind of offloads a lot of the calculation. So here you can see I'm just drawing with Suzanne. So like this, you can also create very cool shapes, like a spine or everything. You can just draw one element of it and just draw this and scatter around. It has really a lot of possibilities. Okay, just to continue and trying to be fast with the overview, you have then the fill layers, and for now I don't have access to an attribute to control this. So to actually draw a fill, you need to draw on a layer that has fill in its name. What will happen is that you will start just drawing a fill based on the size of your brush. So how wide will determine how wide the shape is. And then you have Booleans operations. You can see I'm starting to sculpt through it. Yeah, you need to walk around. It's a bit finicky for now. It's kind of an experimental feature. So you have intersect and Boolean, and depending on which layer you draw on, you're gonna do one or the other operation, and you can accumulate them. And then you have the shading control. So if I draw more, you have control over the fact if you want to cast shadows or not, have translucency enabled. If you are actually sculpting something or designing something that's hard, like let's say a building or has a hard shape, you can disable it. And you can just have a different object if you want to have different settings. So if this one can have translucency and the other one don't. So you can accumulate the different settings together. Okay, I'm going to show you also the Billboard mapping. Basically, it will force the texture to always face the camera. It works particularly well on cube because you also get the shading of the cube. and on the round shape, so then you get a bit softer shading. But then the look of the stamp is always nice. Without this, I was always bothered that it was following the UV of the shape and kind of distorting it, of course, and then breaking the 2D look. So it has its use, and this still looks cool, and then if you add some of the random rotation, for example, you can still get a very nice feeling depending on the style that you're going for. But now with the billboard mapping, you can very easily create randomization and things like that, like in that case foliage, but it could be anything. And you can still cast shadow, so it will cast shadow on itself. So yeah, I'm very happy about the billboard feature. And to continue quickly, there is some simplify normals and the activation of the back facing. So it will work here, but it will be even more evident when I remove the billboard. And then you can force to face a camera or an object, and then it will always face that object. So it will rotate the geometry to always face it. So it's kind of like the billboard, but then you don't need to force the rotation. Here you can see the object rotating with the camera. It depends on what you need. Now you have both options, and you can choose which axis is going to follow. The shrink wrap will help drawing on other objects. If I bring back our monkey, I'll bring a new grease pencil object, just a line, activate the shrink wrap. You can choose an object or a collection, so if you have a whole character, for example. And you can choose the distance it will affect the points. You can see now they are really stuck. And if I remove the Suzanne, now they are not stuck because I was not drawing on the surface, but if I go on the surface, you will draw on it, but then the orientation is not necessarily right perfectly. Here we are really sticking on it. And then you can have a surface offset if you don't want them to intersect, depending on what you're doing. So you could draw like this some outlines or some details, and you know that they will follow the shape. It's a really good way to draw on objects. And then there's all of the randomization. So now you can have them per point. So every point will be assigned that random rotation, or here per stroke. So every point will get the same rotation. Here it will displace the strokes evenly, and here like the random position will be per point. So if you accumulate those two, you can really have lush foliage, for example, or anything, grass, it can be anything that you're sort of scattering around. The override material can force a material on the object, so bypassing the automatic material system. The UV settings is to scale the UVs, because everything is mapped on UVs, so you can always control it. And then the remesh, I will create a new object. So if I choose, for example, a square with a cap and on point mode for now, so I'm creating full shapes. So if I do this, for example, and then I activate the remesh, you're basically sculpting and then creating voxels. They will create an organic form. It will follow the shapes that you're drawing with, and you can reduce the amount if you want to have a more organic shape or have very detailed one. You can increase the voxel amount. You can inflate if it's a bit too thin, or even if that's the look that you want. Adaptive will adapt the geometry to simplify it, not necessarily as an optimization, even if it works, but it can give really nice shapes because it's gonna simplify some aspects of the flat areas and keep sharper the corners. And then you have the smoothing that will smooth the shapes and the details. And something you can use with GPSketch is all of these buttons here that are shortcuts of settings that are usually a bit hidden here and there in the interface. So those four is the stroke placement. Here you will draw on surfaces. So for example, if I activate it here, I'm always going to draw on that surface because we are drawing with a mesh. And I guess you can basically just sculpt on your sculpt. It's really, really cool. Here it's based on stroke placement. So if I import a new GPSketch object, I'm going to show you what it is. So I put in lines just to show a different way of doing things, and one of the regular brushes, because you really don't need to use any of the GPSketch brushes. This one is really nice because, so if you hover over, you can see different options. By default, it will be endpoint mode. So you can find these here, the stroke placement. Endpoint means that where you will start and end your stroke will determine the placement in depth of your stroke. So normally, if I say, for example, from the cursor and I place my cursor here, if I draw from here to here, you would expect to have your stroke being placed on those two strokes, but no, it's over there because my cursor is way off. But if I activate the end to end, you will have exactly what you would expect. So that's sort of the closest you will get to a VR experience and being able to draw in depth. And there is, depending on how you would draw, there will be some interpolation. But if you draw assertively and a straight line, you will have something that looks like a straight line. And it works within like different objects and from meshes and drawings. So it's really cool. This is the origin of the object and this is the cursor. You can activate the drawing plane so you know in which orientation you're drawing. You can lock the inactive layers so you are not messing around with the ones that are not active. Here is to set the orientation. By default is screen space, so you can see that the drawing plane is following. Here you're looking to the 3 different axes. It can be useful if you are drawing, for example, building or the ground. Like this, you know you will be straight on. And if you do from the cursor and then you change the axis, here you know you will draw 90 degrees from that angle. And this one is based on the cursor placement. And because of the new cursor tool that I will show later, now you can control it on the fly. And this is what I was saying, to refresh the material setup in case it gets desynchronized. So that's it for the overview of the GPSketch modifier. I will just show quickly some of the other objects, but the goal is not to spend too much time on everything, it's just so you have a feeling of what you can do with GPSketch. So this one is just creating a hull shape based on the drawings that you are doing. You can choose if the hull is per layer, so if you add a layer, you will start drawing a different shape, and every strokes that you make in this layer is going to add to that one. You can have one hull for the whole object, or per strokes. And then if you go in sculpt mode, for example, you can sculpt it like this. So for everyone who used Gravity Sketch, it's kind of the closest you'll get to that. It's really cool to block out environments, for example. You have the different options to use the brush opacity, the transparency as well, and the cast shadow. And you can also simplify the normals. And you can remesh it as well. There are other ones in the package, but if you want to see everything that it has to offer, you can look at the original video that go in depth with all of these tools. Now let's talk quickly about the updates themselves. There was a big work on the sidebar to try to make it more useful, have more shortcuts available, so you don't need to go in any menus, and limit the number of clicks that you need to do. Also here I am on Blender 5, and just to say that there was an update on the color picker, because in the previous version, because of the update that they made in color space in Blender itself, you were not drawing with the actual color you were picking, there was an offset, but now it's been fixed. So the color that you are picking is actually the color you are gonna draw with. I added 3 more sliders for people who really like to work this way instead of having to choose a color picker. So you can still use the red, green and blue, but now you can also tweak your colors with HSV, hue, saturation and value. You can deactivate the one that you don't use or that you don't want if you want to save space. I gave access to all of the randomization options, and now you can just tweak them on the fly. So you can see if I really crank it up, starting to add a lot of random to the color, which is very pretty. You can add the random value, and for those who don't use this too much, here it's to set the settings per stroke instead of per point. So like this, every time I draw a stroke, it will have a randomization on its value. So you can see they have random values, but it also works with the saturation or the hue, for example. So every stroke had a different hue, and this is to use the pressure to change the intensity of it. So the good thing is that with the import brush tool, now you can set them up very quickly and just save them as they are. See here I'm introducing a lot of randomness in the radius, but the rotation doesn't show because now I don't have a brush, but if I have here, for example, random rotation is at full, so you can see compared to here. So I like having this because you can even one brush, customize it on the fly depending on what you need. You change the setting and then you just update it. And then you continue painting without having to open any menu. The palette is still here and those haven't changed. It's still to add grease pencil color tool, so basically to change on the fly on the modifier level, not per stroke, your colors. So now you can really control them after the fact. And here adds on top color overlay. So if I remove this here, so you can activate or deactivate it or remove it. Another update on the UI was still already present, but now it looks better. It's the different eraser options. So here is you're erasing the points until they disappear in terms of opacity. And here you will do the same, but on with harder, so you don't need to press as much. And here you're just erasing the strokes themselves in once. So depending on what you like to use, you can easily switch between them. Otherwise, you need to go in here, tool, eraser, and change it every time, which is not so convenient. So it's hidden everywhere. Here it's accessible. Also, this option is to use the unified shared color, which is not present in grease pencil normally. So if I deactivate it, every time I change a brush, the color changes to use the color stored in the brush settings. I find it very annoying. Because when you're drawing, like for example, you draw in any painting softwares, that never happens and it's very confusing because you generally want to change the shape you're drawing with, not the color. So using this, you will actually synchronize the color between every brushes, and now you're able to just change your brush and continue painting. And then here, there was a lot of improvement also. So you can change the mode here, paint mode, sculpt mode, vertex paint mode, and edit mode, selecting the points or selecting the strokes. So if I go back here, and those are the different shortcuts for the tools, the square, the circle, and they depend on how the basic tool works. So if you put your stroke style in line, you will have ruler shapes, otherwise you will have points, and then for example, if you go here and press up arrow, you will increase the resolution or decrease it with down arrow, for example. You have all of the shortcuts at the bottom here if you want to draw straight lines, but same, these tools work better in line mode because the interpolation works better. And this one is the polyline tool. So if you want to draw a bunch of straight lines at once, you can just press this and then you can change any points until you press enter to validate. And this is our shortcut, like smart essential brushes. So the essential brushes are those ones. So you can access them with one click, and they are mode specific. So those ones are the drawing ones. Those are vertex paints. If I go back on smear color, you will start to smear it or blur your colors, which can be very useful if you want to tweak afterwards. And I have only these because it's the one I activated. I will show you after how you can activate them. And those are the shortcuts to the sculpt brushes. So you can just access all of these with one click instead of having to just go around and then change mode and choose any of these brushes. The shrink and the drag, so you can just have. And once you activate one, you can change the mode like you normally do, and then it will come back to that one. So you don't need to use them all the time. If you're not in a drawing mode, it will propose a shortcut to go in any of them. If I create a mesh, it also works in texture paint mode. So you have the same, and you can see here that it's basically the same, but for texture painting. You can activate the randomization for your brushes. You have a bunch of brushes here. And if you activate a unified color, I think here, okay, there's a refresh. You can also activate an override on a randomization, because normally it's also per brush for the random colors and all of this, and you can just override this, so now the randomization will be they will be global. There's the same type of shortcuts that change the mode also automatically, so the vertex paint tool and all of the essentials here. So that's it for the sidebar update and a big overview of how you do everything as well, because in the end everything got reworked. Now I will go over the update on the preferences and to show people who don't know how the options that you have. So here the toolbar option, if I go back to grease pencil object in draw mode, so it's this. You can change if it's on the left side, I like the left side, or the bottom. If it doesn't update, just click somewhere to have a refresh on the UI. Now I added tabs to organize things because the preferences are getting bigger. In the tools there is the shortcut tool that I will show you a bit after, and the settings, the basic shortcuts. The default shortcut I'm using is the one that Blender uses, so it overrides the normal shortcut. So you can change it here. Here you can change the placement mode. I will show you how all of this works. A summary of the shortcuts that you can hide if you don't want to see them or if you're used to it. And an acknowledgement of my friend Ian for allowing me to use this idea for the tool that he developed on his side as well. I think he's gonna release it on online on Gumroad eventually for free, so I'll probably let you guys know when it's done. Really cool. And here, the sidebar and brushes, so what I was saying earlier, you can activate all of the essentials or not, depending on the ones that you use in general. Same for the tools, if you know you're never gonna use these, you can just hide them, make space on the sidebar. Same for all of these options at the top, and then the modes, this is for texture painting, that's why you don't see any update here. Those are the brushes that you can activate or deactivate per mode, so sculpt, draw, vertex paint, for example. You can have the paint one here. And it's really up to what you like. You can save the preferences when you're done, and then they should just stay the way they are. Look at which category you're using. You can also deactivate a category, and then it just won't appear. Like this, you don't need to activate or deactivate all of them. And so this new update and refresh on the UI of the preferences will allow me to just continue adding more tools and more settings without cluttering too much. Now I am on the GPSketching workspace. You can import from the preferences here, import GPSketch work. I'm trying to mimic the way a painting software looks like. So here it's sort of your layers, and here is your toolbar with all of your shortcuts. So the cursor tool, the way cursor normally works in Blender, you shift right click to place the cursor, and then when you drag, you're moving it in screen space. What I changed here is that instead of moving it, you're rotating it. Why I find it way more useful is because in general it's not very useful to just place it in the screen space, because it will allow you to draw from the screen space anyway, so it's not changing anything. But being able to just rotate it, and if I put the place stroke mode in cursor and then the orientation in cursor mode, I will activate the canvas so you can see. Now what I'm doing is actually rotating my canvas, and now when I'm drawing, I will draw with that orientation. So you can see how fast this could be to start sketching things around. So if I do something like this, I'm drawing, let's say, a path, or I don't know what I'm, like laying out from a camera point of view, so you know that's what you want it to look like from this perspective. Then I go back here, and then I can just click on one part of the stroke, and then start sketching. And you know that depending on where your orientation is, this is, okay, some of the calculation of Blender when clicking need to be quite accurate. So you can rotate it freely like this, but you can also click on X to rotate it around the X-axis. If you press X again, you will rotate around the local X, and same with Y twice and Z twice. So you can create your orientation really the way you like, and then start drawing. And when you get comfortable with this, it can get very efficient. You also can, once you placed it, press G to move it. So move it in screen space. Then you can move it on pressing X on the X-axis. X twice will be local. Same for Y twice, and Z twice also. So like this, if you press J and Z twice, you will just move it in the depth. And like that, you can just place your cursor somewhere, press J, and press twice depending on the orientation that you have. And then you're gonna place it where you know where it is. If you press G once, you enter move mode, and G a second time, you re-enter rotation mode. So you can tweak it as much as you like. If you press Ctrl, you will enter snap mode, and if you press Shift and Alt and Ctrl, you will change the snapping. If you press Ctrl, Alt and drag, you will change the angle. So that's it for the cursor tool. It's very, very cool. Thanks again Ian McQue for allowing me to incorporate it in GPSketch. Quick update on what's new in the modifier itself for those who have been using GPSketch already. There's the addition of the rounded cap or the round mode. Be careful of the added geometry when you're in point mode, but then, like I was saying, it works great in line, and custom objects has been reworked, works way better now. If you use in the custom object curve, it will be used as a profile. Then there is force fill and force flat. It's been there since the last version, but I will still show what it does. In the fill mode, because this is for the fill layer shape. So you can see the thickness. Force flat will force it to be a plane, and force fill will force to be a fill regardless of which layer you're drawing on. And this was from questions I've asked from people on the Discord channel. They wanted to be able to draw an outline, for example, for a character or details or anything, and have the fill being synced to it and update at the same time. Now you can Alt-D to link duplicate, and even if you draw on the line, you can force fill this layer and, for example, force flat, and now if you draw, you will draw both at the same time and they will be synced together. And because you have two different objects, for example, if you go here and add a tint modifier, you can tint your fill, or you could just do the opposite. Tint your outline to be always black, and now when you draw, you will have your fill that has your color. So here I have a lot of color jitters, and then have your outline always be there. So this is for the force fill and force flat. Like I was showing, also there is the billboard mapping. So I showed in the overview where it is, the backfacing and all of these new options. The addition of random per point or per strokes. Another thing that got a big update is the capture color modifier, especially because of Blender 5. With the introduction of the scatter objects modifier that's integrated now, which is great, but the capture object was not ready for it yet, so I'll show you how to use it. So I just created a grease pencil object. Let's do it like this. Something random. I will go in edit mode, just place it a bit better over the origin. So I have this object that can be absolutely anything. For example, I want to scatter it on the surface, so using the new scatter on surface object. I use the cube because just show it can be anything. Actually, we will need to subdivide. The capture color uses vertices to capture the color. If I use, for instancing, the GPSketch object, sometimes it shows that dependency cycle, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure why. If you get the dependency cycle issue, you can convert also your GPSketch into actual mesh, which is not possible with normal grease pencil. So you just click GPSketch to mesh. You can keep the original object or not and clean the unused material. I click OK, and now I have exactly the same, but now it's a regular object. Now if I select it, I don't have any problem anymore. And now you can see I have access to all of the geometry. So let's create a shader on the cube and create an image texture. If I preview it and go in texture paint mode, I'll just use a random texture, just painting something on the different faces. Maybe I'll hide this so we can see it roughly. And so if I visualize the material like that, I turn this on again. So you can see that now we are using the colors of the grease pencil sketch, which are stored on the point vertex color. If I search for the capture color of GPSketch, now you can use the self object and look for the sketch. And before you couldn't use self object because I scatter things differently. And now you have that option for cases where you're actually instancing from the object. Because the way I instance things, because I have another tool that I use, is using draw scatter, which uses external objects, and then I project it and then use the capture color of that particular object and then the sketch, and then now it's gonna follow the colors of the nearest point. Those are the two options. But because this now is incorporated in Blender, might as well show how it works and make use of it. You can subdivide the objects that you are sampling from, but be careful because it's actually adding geometry, but it will make the sampling more accurate. So if you have a base object that's already quite subdivided, don't overdo it. And you can control the intensity of the sampling. And just like that, you have a way of brushifying a bit your mesh. If I go in sculpt mode and move things around, you can see this is still following. So it can be a very useful way to add strokes, stylized strokes to a mesh, and be sure that it follows the texture that you have. And then you could bake everything afterwards if it becomes a bit heavy. But it could be useful to break up silhouette, for example. One more feature that took a while to develop and make it work is the ability to import brushes from your favorite softwares. Clip Studio Paint, Procreate, Krita, and Photoshop. I use Krita, so I'm gonna import some of my Krita brushes that I exported beforehand. For all of these, you can just export your brushes like you usually do. So Photoshop the point ABR. For Krita, you can export the bundle to have a bunch of brushes, or the JBR, the individual ones. Dot brush, and Clip Studio Paint, the set brushes. There's one thing about Procreate. In the last update, like I was mentioning, the 5.4, they completely changed the way brushes are saved. It's way more protected than it used to be. The stamped images is like what it uses to create the look of the brush is not exported anymore. It's incorporated in Procreate. So because it's not even saved at all, like, there's nothing I can do about it, sadly. Brushes before 5.4 are okay. I don't know if there is a way to save brushes in the new Procreate that allows saving the stamps. If that's the case, it will work. Otherwise, there's nothing I can do about it in this case. In all of them, they will try their best to map the settings as good as I could set them regarding the randomization settings, the stamp, and the texture. It can still be improved. I would be curious to have feedback on how they work and what you think. But that's also why I gave access to all of these settings here, because now once the brush is imported, you can easily tweak it to your need and then just save it. So in the import options here, if you don't have this on the sides, you should click on the cogwheel. You can choose to create a grease pencil brush. By default it's on, and also a texture pen brush if you want to. And then you can, I recommend to leave these ones, but if you know what you're doing, you can change them according to your needs. So I click on, you can see here it's doing a lot. So it's giving you feedback on what it's trying to map and the settings. If you're adventurous, you can look into it, but you can completely ignore it. Here you can see they are imported with their custom thumbnails. For Krita it's the thumbnails, for Photoshop and others it will be the stamp itself because they don't have particular thumbnails. And now I can just start painting with them. So it tried to match the settings I have in Krita as best as it can, but if it misinterprets or you feel like it's not right, then you can just tweak them here. Change the radius, the jitter, it's the orientation. Change these settings if the proportions are not right. There's limitation on how well I can map it because the values and the interpretation in the different softwares are different. But now you can see how easily you can get your brushes in Blender. If you think that a look of one of the stamp is wrong, you can use here, for example, in QP tool, look for the brush name, the Creeper 01 Krita, for example. So in QP tool panel, the most useful will be the material list because it allows you to have an external window that won't change if you change the object you're selecting, and also allows you to have a material open even while you have a grease pencil object selected, which is not available normally because they are completely separate material sets. So here the stamp render fix will change. I selected the wrong one. Oh yes, I did click on the wrong one. We'll change the way the alpha is interpreted, because sometimes the way you export them or the way they are looking will be giving different outlooks. So a way to fix it is just to change the temp render fix, and then when you save, you should have this saved. If not, per project you might have to reset it. I'll see if I can improve that in the future. Also, if the orientation of the stamp is not right, you can change it here. So then every time you draw now, it will be fixed and in the correct order. Once you have all of your brushes imported and you tested them a bit, you're happy to just export. Here in the export, you have save brushes to library. It will give you, like the normal save brushes options, the access to the library, and then you can save it to a particular catalog. You can separate the grease pencil brushes and the texture brushes to a different catalog if you want to, or not, it will use the same. And when you do, it will create one Blender file with all of your imported brushes, so all of this. It won't save any of the other ones that are already in your library. Why this? It's because for now there is a bug in Blender. You cannot use the save asset. It's a bug that's been reported and they are working on it. I don't know when it will be merged. When this will be merged in the software, we won't need the export one, but for now you need to use the export. The limitation with the export is that you won't be able, like any of these brushes, to save the changes asset. These are unavailable because there is no way, or it's very, very complex, because it's not just saving a Blender file. It has to be saved as a library file which has particular flags in its code that we don't have access to in Python. But for now you have a workaround, you can save them there. If you want to edit them in the future, you can go and open the file that will be saved in the location of the library that you're saving it. So here where you saved your GPSketch library, for example, if I save it, I will show you where it lands. So this is where I saved my library, and in there will be a saved folder, brushes and brush export. So this is where they will all live. And after that, they will appear in your asset library. So here you can see them. Now they appear twice because they are also here in the actual file, but there are some that are local and some that are in the saved file. And then I saved them here, so you can see. There's another feature. If you have already paint brushes or grease pencil brushes and you want to convert them into the other one, you can, in your asset browser, right-click and convert to paintbrush if it's a grease pencil brush, or convert to GP brush. And it will do its best to match the settings and have the same look on the converted brush. So this is also really cool because if you got a library file of paint brushes and you want to have the same look in your grease pencil to match when you're painting in two different modes, you can use that. You need to do them one by one, but you can just click and then it will ask you the same. If you want to rename it, in which library, in which catalog, it's the standard way of saving brushes, and then create a material, which is important, especially for grease pencil, and then which style, so painting with dots or color attributes. In general, dot is better, especially if you want to have the stamp effect, and then you have a summary of what's happening there. And when you save it, it's gonna do exactly the same, but in this case, it will create an editable asset and save it in the library that you choose. So that's it for this update. It's a lot. Here is the breakdown of everything that's been updated. I will post it online so you can have a reference. I'm quite happy with the new features and what it proposes in terms of workflow, especially the Billboard mapping and all of the bug fixes and a few improvements. So yeah, I hope you're gonna like it. Give me feedback if you have, or ideas, because that's how it helps me to improve the tool itself and to fix it if there is any problems.